So I did a previous video where I went through an entire ultralight backpacking setup for quite a bit less than what ultralight typically costs. And one of the things I mentioned on that video was my backpacking stove, which I've been using for many years now. It's only $10 and it's pretty lightweight. A lot of people commented on that video and said that their favorite backpacking stove was the BRS 3000T. So I looked it up and I saw that even though this is already pretty light, that stove is a quarter of the weight of this one, and it's still only $17. So I decided to check it out for myself. I just completed my first backpacking trip with this stove, so I thought I would do a little comparison video, go through some of the differences, what I like and dislike about each one, and then I'll place links in the description below so you can check them out for yourself. So I'll start off by talking about Old Faithful. This stove is pretty dirty and worn down because it's been well loved for many years now, but still works like a charm. The stove has 4 support legs that unfold by kind of swinging them around the outside of the stove, and then at the top of each support leg it has these other 4 little legs that unfold to the outside. The very top of the stove has a simple mesh pattern. The bottom of the stove has a little rubber gasket, and probably the biggest difference between these two stoves is that this one has a built-in igniter. In addition to the stove itself, this one also comes with this hard plastic carrying case. Next is the BRS 3000T. This stove is almost entirely titanium, and it has 3 longer folding legs instead of 4 shorter ones. And the only weird thing about it is that if you fold out one of the legs completely, the leg is so long that it will kind of prevent another leg from opening. So you have to do this weird thing where you fold all 3 legs out about halfway and then fold them down the rest of the way. Not a big deal, but it is a little bit annoying. The top of this stove has these little slots that are designed to emit the fuel outward and at an angle. And as you may be able to tell, this stove does not have a built-in igniter, which means you will have to carry a lighter or matches or some type of ignition source. Also, the BRS 3000T comes with this little nylon drawstring carrying bag. Now, both of these stoves use the blended fuel canisters, which you can find in many different sizes, and you can find them all over the place. You can find them at Walmart, just about any sporting goods store. Really easy to find. Both stoves have a little O-ring at the end of the threads on the inside. So I haven't had an issue with either one of these with fuel leaking out once I have the stove entirely screwed onto the canister. So getting into some of the differences between these two stoves, this one has obviously stood the test of time for me, so I would not expect it to break on you. But with that said, the build quality of this stove just feels a lot better. It feels more solid. Now with both of these stoves unfolded, you can see that the BRS 3000 is a little bit shorter and smaller, but if you do put these upside down on top of a pot, you can see that the unfolded legs make roughly the same diameter for both stoves. With the two stoves folded up, you can see that the BRS stove has a much smaller footprint, and the handle is able to fold up and lock in place on that stove. On the other one, the handle is able to fold up, but it's prevented from folding far enough to actually lock into place. The $10 stove weighs 110.1 grams with the case, so the stove by itself weighs 93.1 grams. The BRS 3000T stove by itself weighs 25.2 grams. With the little carrying bag, it comes up to 27.3 grams, and if you add in that required ignition source, you're looking at closer to 43 grams. Now this would not be a proper stove comparison if I did not do a boil test. Of course, the engineer in me wants to point out that it's not a perfect test because I don't have a way of knowing that I'm using the exact same gas flow rate for both stoves, but I did try to get all of the other parameters matched up as closely as possible. So I went outside where there was a beautiful ambient temperature of 63 degrees Fahrenheit. I measured out 2 cups of water and confirmed that the water temp was roughly the same as the ambient temperature. I then poured the water into my trusty Toaks titanium pot and I set the pot on the stove. Starting with Old Faithful, I did a boil test which took almost exactly 4 minutes to bring the water to a rolling boil. I then repeated the exact same process with the BRS 3000 stove, and guess what? It took almost exactly 4 minutes to boil water, so almost identical boiling times. Now I do want to mention that you could boil water even faster than that if you did things like put a lid on the pot, if you turn the fuel up higher, or if you even have a heat reflective windscreen to put around the stove. I think that would help a lot. So you could cut that boiling time down a little bit, but I was primarily interested in just seeing if there was going to be a major difference between the two stoves. So if you want to know which one of these I would recommend, personally, I will be using the BRS 3000T going forward, just because it is smaller and it's lighter even with having to carry an extra ignition source. But honestly, I don't think you could go wrong with either one. If you are trying to get your pack weight as low as possible, $7 more for this stove is a pretty cheap way to save a couple of ounces. But on the other hand, if you don't mind carrying an extra 2 or 3 ounces and you'd prefer the convenience of having a built-in igniter, go with this one. If you have any questions for me, you can leave those in the comments section below. If you found this video helpful, you can leave it a like and subscribe for more videos like this coming soon, and I will see you guys next time.